Well, we've got on the line Dave Raval, a home heating and insulation expert, and he's going to share his advice for keeping houses warm but bills low. Good afternoon, Dave.
Hi there, Toby. Hello.
Now, what is the secret there? Because that sounds like an impossible task, keeping houses warm but bills low at the moment.
So there's lots of things people can do. Some things actually, frankly, are quite difficult and the government should help us all to do them. But there's also lots of smaller things that can have a big impact. And I'll happily talk about a few of those. So the first thing I'd always do in any home I ever go to is check for drafts. Easy to do. Just go to every window, every door, put your hand up, cold evening. If you can feel a draft, remember where it is and block it. And this isn't expensive. You can buy draft excluders from DIY stores for just a few pounds. You should be spending, if you're spending £5 on a window, you're spending too much. You can put draft excluders underneath the bottom of doors. You can think about thicker curtains. You can think about door curtains. So that used to be fashionable a few years ago, less so now, but there's a reason for that. It stops drafts. It's crazy to be heating all the air in your home and then just letting it go straight out the windows and doors. So that's the first thing I do, absolutely. Second thing I do is put in more loft insulation, and probably more loft insulation than you think you need. And the reason for that is, hey, heat rises. It's not rocket science telling you that. And so 25% of your home's heat on average in this country goes out through the ceiling, into the loft and out of the roof. And you just lose that 25%. So most people have some loft insulation, typically between the joists, maybe 2 inches, 3 inches. The government now recommends 300 millimeters as a minimum, and that's almost a foot, right? A lot of insulation. So again, get people to install that for you if you want. There's plenty of people who will do that, or just buy it yourself from a DIY store and roll it out. And whatever you do, though, don't squash it. So it's a disclaimer: this is our business, our area of expertise. And one of the questions we had in this research was that most people didn't realize that squashing your loft insulation stopped it from working. And that's because it works on being fluffy. So fluffy, trapping air is quite a good insulator. And if you put everyone's in crowded homes today, right? Everyone wants to use their loft for storage or to wander around it or to use as a little space. If you put boards directly down on the joists or you put boxes down on the insulation, you can press that and you at least half its effectiveness. So meaning you double your heat loss through that space. So, top tip, get insulation, get at least 300 millimeters, about a foot. And if you want to use your loft space, put a raised loft boarding system above it. You can find them online. Our website's loftzone.co.uk. There's lots of installers around the country, including in Blackpool as well. Companies like Instaloft and Loft Genie. But just make sure that you don't compress your insulation, because most people don't realize that doubles the heat loss.
And rather than put the heating on, what else can you do to keep yourself warm? Obviously, wearing a jumper is an obvious one. Electric blankets, are they a good idea? Because I'm guessing they cost less to run than heating itself.
Yeah, so remember that electricity is typically 3 times the cost of gas. So you got to bear that in mind. But if you're staying in one room, a lot of people do this, right? I remember my grandparents, they used to just heat the lounge in the winter and leave the rest of the room cold, and they'd have an electric blanket in the bedroom for when they went to bed. That does save money, right? If that's what you want to do, happy to do that. Obviously, don't leave the electric blanket on all night. Just switch it on just before you need to go to bed.
Yeah.
But there's other more modern ways of doing that as well. So assuming you have a radiator in every room, most people do, put a thermostatic radiator valve on each one. So a TRV, get them again online, cost about £15 for a simple one, no plumbing required. You just unscrew whatever's there, put a new one on, and you can adjust that. So you don't need to have every radiator on maximum all the time. Maybe in the daytime, you can switch the bedroom one off. Maybe you can also have the hall one at a lower temperature than your lounge one, that sort of thing. And all you need to do is twist it to adjust, and that will save you a lot of money in perhaps a more modern way than just heating one room.
And it's important to remember that you can't have the radiators off all the time because of frost protection.
Yes. So your plumbing, if you get below 5 degrees, there's a risk that your plumbing and the waterworks in your property will freeze. And if that happens, you've got a big bill ahead of you, right? And also, frankly, you don't want to have them off all the time because there are health implications here. So, a tragic statistic, really heartbreaking statistic that we don't talk about much in this country, is that 10,000 people a year die because they can't afford to heat their homes. And sadly, tragically, that figure is probably going to get a lot worse this winter. But yeah, if you're at a point where you seriously cannot afford to heat your home at all, there are charities out there. There's one called National Energy Action in Newcastle upon Tyne. They will provide you with advice. Don't go that. Don't be a statistic. Don't be one of 10,000 people a year who unfortunately die through hypothermia or pneumonia. There are other ways out. Don't do that.
Yeah. Now, apparently only 33% are wearing multiple layers around the house. Now, what does that mean exactly? Is that just jumpers itself, or are those 33% wearing jackets and scarves and kind of outdoor stuff in the house?
Yeah, the survey wasn't that specific. I would recommend everyone to wear jumpers in the winter. I don't know why some people want to run around in their underwear and t-shirts in December at home. It's just nonsensical. I'd like to hope not too many people need to get to the point where they're wearing big overcoats and scarves. Again, this is a public health emergency, right? So this is not just people feeling cold at home. This is the point where people are starting to get pneumonia and hypothermia. So if you get to that point, then again, please do reach out where possible to charities to see if you can get some assistance with your heating bills.
And where can we go to get that assistance?
It's not great, right? So we did have, we had a former Tory Prime Minister, David Cameron, who said we're going to cut out all the green crap. He said that, which means he was going to stop all the insulation programs, and he did. To be fair to him, he stuck to his word. But that means, of course, now we're more reliant on what happens in other countries when President Putin does stuff or things along those lines, and there's more risk of us getting too cold. I would go to energy companies if you really can't afford them. They do have a legal requirement to take into account vulnerable people. I would talk to charities like National Energy Action. I would talk to your bank if you've got a mortgage. Again, organisations like that, they can seem quite tough and they will write you nasty letters. But if you write to them saying, "Hey, I'm desperate," they have a legal requirement to actually back off a bit and be more kind and sympathetic. So don't be scared to ask.
Another statistic here is 41% of people race to get dressed in the morning, which is interesting. Are they so cold when they're not wearing anything?
Yeah, I guess so. It'd be quite fun. I've never witnessed that myself. But, it's sometimes some of these statistics sound quite amusing, but beneath it, it's quite serious. People are that worried that actually they're true. I've heard of some people getting dressed in bed. They put their clothes by the side of the bed they've on before they've left, just to keep warm. And particularly if you're elderly, things like that actually become quite important. You don't want to have a big dip after you come out of bed in the morning.
Well, where can we go to find out more information?
So if it's to do with lofts, that's we're good at that. So LoftZone.co.uk will tell you how much insulation you need in your attic, why you shouldn't compress it. If it's more broad, there's a good government website called the Energy Savings Trust.org.uk, and they will provide general information. If you're looking at renovating your own home, maybe putting in some cavity or some external wall insulation or that sort of thing, there's a website called superhomes.org.uk, and that's where people share tips of things they've done themselves as best practice.
Great. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been very helpful to have you on the show.
Lovely. Nice to talk to you as well, Toby.